Just so you guys are aware, this story contains all of these. So yeah, make sure you don't listen to this story if you don't like any of these contents. But if you are not triggered by these, go ahead and watch. I do not care. New beginning. Yin was unsure how many days had passed within the cave. She couldn't see anything through the pitch black emptiness that surrounded her. The first time the demon left, she tried to crawl out of the darkness, but the tunnels were seemingly endless. No matter what direction she went, there was no exit. The little girl felt numb and so fragile that she could barely drop her jaw to eat. Sorry guys, I moved my mic. Jaw to eat whatever the demon brought her back to eat. After every meal, the girl felt worse and worse. She could not tell her body was shutting down and not beginning able to take things being eaten. Ian could not do nothing but lay still as the demon cuddled her for hours. She could do nothing but try to turn over when the demon left to hunt. As times went by, she was unsure if she was awake or asleep because of the constant darkness that dominated her senses. As she laid there on the rough dirt, she could feel her life force swept away, and as more and more time flew by, despite this suffocating feeling of helplessness, Yen found a bit comfort from her impending death. The empty little girl closed her eyes, unsurprised by the darkness that remained both during consciousness and asleep. Even as she slept, even as felt her hands pull her into an embrace, she did not move, succumbing to the unable urge to try to open her mouth and accept the bloody flesh that the demon had brought back. But nothing was passed against her face. She felt both revealed and confused. Instead, her head was pushed against a soft chest. Bumbling with confusion, the girl felt herself being lifted into the air. As they moved, she could feel something for the first time in what seemed like forever. She saw it from the corner of her eye at first, a small white dot. But as they continued walking, the dot became bigger and bigger, and until she finally realized what it was: light. She went to lift her head and gaze at the person holding her, but couldn't find the strength. Instead, she did what she could do and buried into the warmth of the person that held her. Laying her head on their chest, she felt peace as she drifted off to sleep. When Yin awoke, her first reaction was not to rub her eyes, nor was it to check her surroundings for danger. In this new environment, her immediate reaction upon gaining consciousness was to grab the closest piece of clothes and cover her face. Yin heard footsteps trail closer to the soft bed as she was on. Her soft hands grabbed at the cloth and pulled it down, but Yin's grip did not release. "It's all right now. You're safe," a light voice rang out. When she heard the woman's voice, Yin felt the biggest relief. Her shoulders relaxed, and she found herself tearing up. She slowly put the cloth down to look at the woman. The woman was older, around early 40s maybe. Despite the few wrinkles on her face, her arms were toned and her body was fit. Yin tried to say something, but struggled with the scratchiness of her throat. Noticing her struggle, the woman walked away. Yin panicked, seeing the woman retreating back. A squeak leaving her mouth. Less than a minute later, the woman returned with a cup in hand. "My name is Kanuo. I've been taking care of you for the past few weeks," the woman said as she lifted the cup to the girl. Kanuo, I think it's Keiko, Keiko, waited for the girl to finish the cup before speaking again. "What's your name?" "My name is Yin." That's a beautiful name, Yin. It's nice to meet you, the woman beamed, since silence filled the room right after. Neither mustering up the courage to speak. Finally, the woman opened her mouth. Do you remember what happened? The stench of blood, the darkness, the sound of chewing all fought in the front of the girl's mind. Immediately, salty tears fell down her face. I think I said Keiko. I already forgot what I said her name, but Keiko rushed to her side and rubbed soothing circles on her back. The familiar action caused even more tears to spill over. Yin's body creaked with sobs, but oh my gosh, not once did Keiko show any impatience. She waited quietly for the girl to calm down while whispering words of support. When Yin's tears had come to a stop, Keiko raised her hands and wiped the tears off her cheeks. Slowly, Yin began to explain what happened to her, to the best of her abilities, of course, while trying to avoid recalling the hardest parts. Intense sorrow filled her as Keiko put the pieces of Yin's story together. Afterwards, Keiko had described her in her own story. Yin learned that Keiko was a former demon slayer. She was what you would call a Hashira, the organization she worked for slaying monsters, like the one she had been trapped in her darkness. The demon slayer had come across Yin's home. According to Keiko, her home was not the only place that was attacked. She had spent weeks tracking the slippery demon before finally following him to the cave. She managed to slay the demon just as the sun began to rise. Keiko found Yin deadly ill deep within the demon's den. During the past few weeks, Yin had been drifting in and out of consciousness as Keiko nursed her back to health. Yin felt nothing but gratefulness towards the older woman. For the next few days, the little girl gathered the strength to help around the house. At times, she would sit on the back of the porch and watch Keiko train. Yin thought long and hard about her future while trying to heal from her past. The journey was hard, as the helpless of being weak had haunted her. Yin knew what she wanted to do. One day, as the older woman finished her daily workout, the little girl spoke. Please train me, Kayako-san. Sorry guys, I had to extend the video because that's when it stopped. Sorry. Let's continue. Sorry. 4 years later, Kaneko smiled as she watched the girl swing the katana while maintaining complete focus on each breath. She's improved so much, the older woman thought with pride. Her heart was warm despite the anxiety feasting in her stomach. For the past few years, Yin had gone through various training. She had learned to combat demons and humans alike. From Kaneko, she was taught to use her frame to her advantage, to use gravity against her opponent, no matter what the size of her opponent was. Either bigger or smaller, Yin had the confidence to hold out on her own. Yin would never allow the feeling of weaknesses to overwhelm her ever again. Despite the revolution, the trauma from her past had failed to fully fade. Kaneko had noticed Yin's strangeness very early on. At all times, even in front of Kaneko, the beautiful girl had worn a cloth over her face, yet no matter how much he asked, Yin remained silent. When Kaneko tried to get the girl to drop the habit, Yin ignored her for a long time. The older woman was shaken out of her thoughts by the young girl that began to walk towards her. Yin, final selection is in a few days. I know you're ready, but are you sure this is what you want? Yes, the hair-colored girl said as she solved her choice. With a firm nod, the girl bowed her head down to her teacher, thanking her for the training she had given all those years. Kaneko sighed. She straightening that bowing girl. She linked her arms with a young girl and brought her inside, sliding the door closed behind them. The older woman motioned Yin to sit down before leaving the room. Not long after, Kanako returned with a wooden box. Opening the wooden box of things laid inside, the first and most noticeable thing was a kakubu mask. It was an ironing white, with a simple feature carved into the wood. The most striking resemblance was a bright red line that decorated the mask with a beautiful design. Along this mask, sorry, I'm going to butcher all of these Japanese words, so I'm so sorry. It's a yurchikansuri, I think, or a straw hat with soft white cloth, patterned with the archikari was a face veil. The veil was made from a square of fabric that was thin, but I don't know how to say this word. I think occupant, something like that. Kano first pulled out the hat and the veil. This is for your travels, when you don't want to gain too much attention, but still want to cover your face. Use these. She pushed the things in front of the girl. As for this, she said, picking up the mask, it's for sturdy and shouldn't fall off as easily while you fight. Yin received the mask with both hands, turning her face away from her teacher. She slowly slipped off the worn cloth and placed the mask on. The girl pulled the ribbons back and tied a knot over her hair. She turned back to her teacher, who laughed. Do you like it? I made it myself. Yin nodded vigorously at the mask did not move out of place. Thank you, Yin said, her voice wavering with emotion. I will treasure it. The girl, looking down, brought a hand up and trailed along the devil's curves from the mask. Yin could sense God, I cannot read today. Holy moly. The resentment of her teacher. Oh my God, there's dogs barking. Great. She knows that this path is dangerous, but Yin's need to be strong overwhelmed power. The fear. The girl chuckled at her fist. I will grow stronger so that no one will have to suffer like I did.